Everybody, please begin with Megillah on page 1. Page 1 in your class festival prayer book. Ashrei beitecha, o Yerusalem, Ashrei am shechagolo, Ashrei am shechagolo, Diva Levi.
You see here, far in here.
Mafut, all that means Poteach et yadecha, nagbil echai ratzon. Ilad Adonai Yadaberki, Bivarei Vashashim V'Sholom V'en, V'anachnu Mevorach Yah, Me'atav Ya'olam, Hallelujah. Yekal Yashmi Rabban, Yahomad V'Rasher V'Teitem V'Mantei, V'Chayechon V'Yachon V'Chayech B'Bei Yisrael, V'Agal V'Mankarim V'Maru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabban Mevorach, La'olam Me'onayah, Yeporach Yishabak Yepar Yidramam Yidnaseh Yisrael 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 Shemeni B'Deshah B'Ritu Le'elah Yikavachata V'Kratat V'Kratat V'Nematat Yamiram Yalmar Yimeru Amen. You rise and continue on page 3b with the Mikra Amidah. We'll do it together at the end of the Kedusha and then we'll complete the remainder of it silently on our own. Shem Adonai Yisrael Eloheinu Adonai Tzedakah Yitachah V'Yamtiv Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elokei Avoseinu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov Elokei Sarah Elokei Rivka Elokei Rachel Elokei Leah Ha'el Elokei Morim Torah Elayom Gomer Chazrim Tovim Vonei Hagol V'Zofer Kasher Yavod U'Mevigo Elim Evnehem L'man Shmo Yavah Melech Ozer U'Pokei Moshiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Elokei Sarah Asa Gibor Adonai Mechayim Ekim HaTorah L'Hoshiach Mashiach HaRuach U'Morida Hashem Mechal Kachai V'Chesed Mechayim Ekim V'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Matir Asurim V'Mekayim V'Nachal Shnei Afar Milchamot V'Avrot U'Midon Elah Melech Meimid Mechayim Masmiach Yeshua V'Ne'eman Echal Hayom Ekim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei HaMeitim. Page 4. Nekadesh Shem Ha'olam She'Shem Shema Shematav Yishmemara Ka'akasu V'Yad V'Yecha V'Karaseh El Sevamah Kadosh, 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 Shemai Tzvot, Melech Tzvot, V'yom Hasam Baruch Yirod. Baruch Avod Adonai Mikmomo, Divrei Katzchak Hasul Lemor. Yirmoch Adonai L'olam, L'hayeshem L'Aliyah, L'Rod Adonai Givol L'cha, L'Eikon Etzachim Kedushat HaNakdish, Shechacha Elohim Yikonu L'Shalom V'Oed, Yamel L'God Al-Shata, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue silently on page 5. Advan. It's not that we have. So I see it in shrubs. She might be on the mountain, it's kind of raining. It's out of my Yeah. Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Chabad. Oh, say Shalom, yes, say Shalom Rabbi Yisrael. Amen. That's all the time. Beloheo saying Shalom Rabbi Yisrael. Amen. The same for them, Surah Sach Hashem, now Baruchat, you know, Shchanim come with us. Here, Belad and Shchanim come with us. Let us continue with the Kaddish Shalom on page 10. Yet Belah Mirabah, Yom Yibrach Kutei, Yom Kutei, the Chayaton and Yamaton, the Chayet of Israel, Baga, the Bisman Karibim, Amen. Yeh Shemerabah Bara, the Alam Yomai Yevara, the Yishkamak Yevor, Yidramami, and Nasei, Yisadar, Yisalek, Yisalah. Shemego Rishma Vericho, Leilom Kokakasa, Grasa, Tukasa, Nemasa, Damiram Yamani, Maru, Amen. Tikabas, Vatapano, Yisrael, Kodam, Nishmai, Maru, Amen. Yeheslam, Shmaya, Vesaimel, Yato, Yisrael, Maru, Amen. Oh, say Shalom, Roma, Oya, say Shalom. Amen. Please rise and continue with the Alena, page 11. Shalom, Sam Kakin Ganem, the Goralein, the Golamana, Banas, and the Gorin, Omisakabim, Mogin, Lemehele, Mateamatim, Akados, Swarato, Jehon, the Shamayim, the Yosei, Aren, Umashaka Rajmana. Young Matata, Betilo Moed, He Yamada Shulakai, Yomeda Motakabot, Takasu, Sorasaka, Anointed Clothes along the head, Renem, Marayadonai, the Melech of Kolam, Vayomahu, Vayomahu, Yadonai Echad, Ushema, 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 Echad. We continue in Morning Scottish on page 12. Those not reciting Scottish, please be seated. Yekadav, Yekadav, Shemei Rabbah, the Almad, Yivarach, Yekuteh, the Amatmah, Kuteh, the Chayachon, the Yimachon, the Chayedekol, Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalav, Izaman Karim, Yimeru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Barach, Ba'alam, Amei, Almayah. Yet Barak, Yet Shabbat, Yet Bahar, Yet Ramam, Yet Naseh. Yet Adar, Yet Alev, Yet Alav, Shemei, Bereshah, Bereth O. Leilam, Yikol, Bechatam, Shiratav. Tush Vakata, Benefemata, Damiran Biama, Yamaru, Amen. Yehei Shalom Arav Mishmayim, V'chaim Aleinu V'yalko Yisrael, Yamaru, Amen. O say Shalom Yiramav, O Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yalko Yisrael, Yamaru, Amen. You may be seated. Actually, don't get too comfortable. We're going to go into these books now where the Megillah is. And, of course, it has the evening service with it. And so I will ask everybody to please rise and we continue on Roman numeral 1. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Asher B'Meragim. Omar Yom Megillah, Madir Yom Megillah, Adonai Tzavot Shemo, El Chai V'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu, L'Olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai, Amari Baruchim, Alav Olam B'Yisrael V'Halavata, Torah Nimkodim V'Chim V'Chim V'Chim. Ihem Chayenu, Yorach Yameinu, V'Heneged Yamam V'Layla, Yavadachad Osim Mimenu Olamim, Baruch Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Kinder, come on up. Please rise. We continue with the Shema on page Roman number 2. Come on, Kinder. Well, you have to be the Hebrew. Cover your eyes. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'agatai Adonai Elohecha, v'chol avodecha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi b'safcha, hayom al levecha, v'shinacham levanecha, v'divarta bam, v'shivtecha v'veitecha, v'v'lektecha b'aderet, v'v'shoktecha v'v'necha, v'geshartam le'ola yadecha, v'hayu le'notechot, v'einecha, v'taltam, amizuzo v'eitecha, v'visharecha. Please be seated and we continue on Roman numeral number 3, page 3. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי ושמתם אליכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם Page 4 And as them those who time Aleinu, you are not an angel of soul, and of Israel, Amo. Evidently, I'm looking up in the Lord and the God, Lord is me. And so they said, I'm like, you're on the top of that Shalom, they're the audience, everyone can have your divine. There who can have the soul, you will wish more. ומה כתוב רצון קיבלו עליהם, אשר בני ישראל, לכאן יצירה שמחה רבה, ויאמרו כולם, מי כמוך אלוהים אדוני, מי כמוך לדבר קודש, תורה ותהילות, עושי Ma'akudecha Baruch Anecha, Ogei Yamimei Moshe, Ze'eli Anu V'Yamaru, Adonai Yitlo V'Olam V'Ed, V'Nehemar Kivod Adonai Yaakov, U'Gadol Yazak Mimenu, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Continue on page 5. Ashkivenu Adonai Le'el Shalom, Amen, Magen Elohayim, V'Baruch Salem Shlomecha, V'Emes Yisrael Tova V'Necha, V'Oshi'enu L'man Shemecha. U'Shmor Tzeiteinu V'Einu, Chayim Shalom Et Aliyah Olam, Baruch Atah Adonai, Shomer Amo Yisrael. Baruch Adonai Olam Amen Yamein, Baruch Adonai Mitzvah Shoin Yisrael, Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Eloi Yisrael, Hossein Yelosado, Baruch Shem Olam, Yodego Eskolades, Amen Yamein, Yivaram Yisrael. Sayara Olam Elohim B'nei Elohim Meru, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Elohim, Elohim Al-Baretz, Ayomen Echad Shmocha. Pardon the Karazan Vitafa, on the dead, Continue on page 6. Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Baruch He amaro shalachahid, lamedakim lakvakavod. He honalavata, baruch Adonai. Analagilot hamidim v'aleinu, olam v'ed. V'al kol ma'asad. Yetara v'yad shemei rabban. V'yalma, v'yad say, v'yad say. V'chayachon, v'yachon, v'chayachon, Israel. Agalav Ismakarim, Imaru Amen. Yesh Meirah Mevarah, Salam Milmaya. Yet Barak Yishabat, Yidwar, Yidmam, Yidnaseh, Yisarar, Yisalek, Kalak, Medusham, Evifu, Leila, Mikol, Yasav, Grasad, Yushwasan, Egamasam, Namiron, Yoma, Imeru, Amen. Please rise and continue with the silent devotion. And be sure to add on page 10 at the bottom the Al Hanisim prayer for Purim. When finished with your silent devotion, please be seated. Alle Tzadikim der Chassidim. Baruch atah Elohim Yeshua, Shema Koleinu Adonai Elohim Yisrael Elohim Baruch. Ki el Shemet Edos Edos Atah. Seven. Medina Nahnu Ashatar Elohim Elohim Allah nisnu Yahweh Yahweh Baruch Yahweh Nechama Sosin. Ayami Elohim Mordechai the Esther Shana B'Yah. So it's Yahweh. No, ya no tiene palabras. Solo varios palabras. Dice Shalom, dice Shalom, and I guess you know the name of someone that never knew the same shit, but it didn't matter. I mean, the Shana of the Kat, and the Mushkanim, Kamanios, the Carolina, and the Mushkanim, Kamanios. We shall continue with the reading of the Megillah. And if we open up our books to page, I believe it should be 6. Let me see which one it is here. Yeah, where it says introduction. Introduction.
The numbers in the middle.
Yeah. This happened during the days of King Ahasuerus. Now, can everybody say that word? Not Ahasuerus. Okay. Not Oshkosh Bagosh, but Ahasuerus. Okay. Thus, the book of Esther begins in the breathtaking story of intrigue, ruthlessness, and deliverance in the ancient land of Persia over 2,000 years ago. This simple parchment scroll brings to life the rich images of the participants in the exciting Jewish historical drama. Esther the heroine, feminine in beauty, risks her life to save the Jews of Persia from a genocidal massacre. Mordecai, her uncle, God-fearing and resolute in the face of impending disaster. Haman, the vizier of Persia, who decides to annihilate the Jews and use their property and wealth to further his own political aims. King Ahasuerus, the licentious, hard-drinking, indecisive monarch, who gives Haman permission to destroy the Jews. The story of Esther is the eternal story of hatred, which has been repeated in different countries in almost every generation to the present time. Over the centuries, community and family Purims have been set aside to commemorate localized deliverances from great evils and tyrants. They were celebrated with festivities and often with the reading of a scroll telling the story of their particular deliverance. At times, there were no miracles. There was no Purim for the Jews of Europe during the Nazi period. Under the diabolical leadership of Hitler, 6 million innocents were murdered, gassed, and burned in the death camps of Germany. Today, Purim is the merriest holiday of the Jewish year. It is celebrated with Shalach Manot, carnivals, parties, masquerades, eating, carousing, and even just a thistle of silliness. It is the one day of the year when even drunkenness is tolerated, but not here. The Talmud declares a person is obligated to drink enough on Purim so that he cannot distinguish between blessed is Mordecai and cursed is Haman. Interestingly enough, the numerical value of both of these Hebrew phrases is identical at 502. For 2,000 years, the story of Esther has been like an oasis in the desert, which again and again springs to life and gives us hope and strength in times of duress. The festival of Purim offers Jews a lesson of courage and faith. In the darkest moments, the festivities cheered the Jews and inspired them with hopes of final victory over their enemies, just as Esther and Mordecai triumphed over Haman. I think everybody's got that one figured out. All right, so let us begin with the brachas first, and then we shall proceed. Now, the way we do this, if you've not been here before, is I will tell you a certain amount of verses to read, and you go ahead and read that, and then the person next to you will continue with the next set of verses that I'll yell out. And so that way everybody not only hears the reading of the Megillah, but they participate in the actual reciting of it. Let's start with our brachas. Continue. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu mikra Megillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim l'avoseinu v'yamim hahem v'azaman Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'echianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazaman hazeh. Carolyn, we start with you. And on page 9, read the first 6 verses.
This happened during the days of King Ahasuerus, who ruled 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia. At that time, the king Ahasuerus ruled over his kingdom from the capital, Shushan, the fortress. In the 3rd year of his rule, he made a feast for all of his princes, advisors, and army officers. At that party, the king showed off his great riches and the glory of his kingdom. This grand celebration lasted for 180 days. When the celebration was over, the king made another feast for the people of Shushan, great and small, a feast which lasted 7 days. This feast took place in the court of the garden of the king's palace. The palace was decorated with white, green, and blue curtains tied with ribbons of linen and purple on rods of silver and pillars of marble. Benches of gold and silver stood upon a floor covered with red, white, yellow, and black marble.
Okay, Kimberly, 7 through 12.
Okay. The guests drank great quantities of wine from golden cups in many shapes and forms. For the king commanded that no man was to be forced to drink too much, but only as much as they wanted. Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women. This celebration took place in the palace of King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day of the feast, when the king was a bit drunk with wine, he commanded his 7 closest servants, the eunuchs, Mehuman, Bizetha, Arbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcas, to bring Queen Vashti dressed in her royal crown, so that the people could see how beautiful she was. But Queen Vashti refused to parade before the drunken guests. This refusal made the king very angry.
All right, Asher, you want to read? Yes? Okay. I can't see your eyes. All right, so 13 through 17.
The angry king called a meeting of his experts on the Persian law, as was customary. The experts were Karshena, Shethar, Adnatha, Tarshish, Maris, Marcia, and Memophon, 7 of the most important princes of Persia and Media. He asked what he should do to Queen Vashti, who had disobeyed him. Memophon, emperor on behalf of the others. Not only had Queen Vashti disobeyed the king, but she has also offended all the princes and people in every one of the king's provinces. But the news of her behavior was spread throughout the kingdom, and all will join her in disobeying her ordinance. They will say the king commanded Queen Vashti to be defeated before him, and she refused to go.
I think I heard the doorbell. Is there somebody at the front door?
Someone did.
All righty, Nathaniel, 18 through 22.
At this moment, the wives of the princes of Persia and Media are answering their husbands in the same way that Vashti answered you. That kind of attitude will cause family dissension. If the king agrees, let him issue a royal order, a Persian decree that can never be changed. Send Vashti into exile and choose a new queen to replace her. When the king's decision is publicized, wives throughout the kingdom will not rebel against their husbands and will treat them with more respect. The king and his advisors were pleased with the suggestion, so Ahasuerus followed Memucan's advice. The king sent orders to every one of his provinces, each in its language and scripts, directing that all husbands were to be masters of their homes.
All right, we continue with chapter 2, Ezra, 1 through 6.
Sometime later, when King Ahasuerus calmed down, he realized how severely Vashti had been punished in relation to what she had done. To quiet him, his advisors suggested, let us search for the most beautiful girls in the kingdom. Then the king sent beauty scouts throughout the kingdom who will bring pretty unmarried girls to the king's army in Shushan, to Haggai, the Harlem, who will dress them in royal clothing to beautify them. and the girl whom the king chooses will become the queen in place of Vashti. This plan pleased the king, and he approved it. There was a Jew in Shushan named Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimon, the son of Kish, a Benjaminite. Mordecai had been carried into exile in Jerusalem with the captives who were exiled with Jeconiah, the king of Judah, by Nebuchadnezzar.
All righty. Thank you. Very good. All right, Glenn. 7 through, I think, 13.
Mordecai raised Hadassah, whose Hebrew name was Esther, his cousin, for she had no father and mother. Mordecai adopted beautiful Esther as his own daughter. When the king's order was publicized, many beautiful young girls were brought to the king's harem in Shushan and placed in Haggai's care. Esther was taken into the palace and placed under the care of Haggai, the keeper of the harem. She made an excellent impression upon Haggai, so he rushed her beauty treatment and gave her 7 servants in the best apartment in the harem. Esther followed Mordecai's instructions and told no one that she was Jewish. Meantime, Mordecai was worried about Esther. Each day he stationed himself near the harem to find out what was happening to her. Before the girls were paraded before King Ahasuerus, they were given a full year of beauty treatments. The girl who came before the king was dressed in special clothing and jewels.
All right, Samantha. Now we continue at the top of page 15 and verses 14 through 18.
She was brought to the king in the evening, and in the morning she was placed in the second harem where the king's wives lived. The second harem was in the charge of Shashbaz. The girl, glasses. The girl never saw the king again unless he wished for her, especially called her by name. When Esther's turn came, she asked for nothing special except what Haggai, the keeper of the harem, had advised. Everyone in the harem was dazzled by Esther. And Esther was brought to King Ahasuerus to his palace in the 10th month, in the month of Tebet, in the 7th year of his reign. The king loved Esther more than anyone, for he crowned her queen in place of Vashti. The king made a great feast for his princes and advisors in honor of Esther. Ahasuerus distributed numerous gifts and canceled many taxes.
All right. Verses 19 through 23. Let's see. Alicia, did you want to read?
Sure, I'm so sorry. Which chapter?
We're on page 15, verses 19 through 23, just right before chapter 3.
When the beautiful girls were assembled for the second time, Mordecai was sitting near the king's gate. She did not tell anyone that she was Jewish, even though she was a queen. Esther continued to follow Mordecai's instructions. One day, when Mordecai was sitting at the palace gate, 2 rebellious officers, Bigthan and Teresh, were plotting to kill the king. Mordecai got wind of the plot, told Esther about the plot, and Esther immediately told the king in Mordecai's name. The plotters were questioned and they confessed. The plotters were then executed, and details of this incident were officially recorded in the king's historical record.
All right. We continue with chapter 3. And of course, this is where we're going to start making some more noise. And any of your daughters want to read? Okay. Basically, the next 5 verses, 1 through 5, beginning of chapter 3. Is she going to read? I guess not. Okay.
Sorry, who did you call on?
Oh,
This lady here.
her oldest daughter.
Oh, I didn't know.
I thought she was gonna read.
Three verses?
Actually 5 verses. Sometime later. Keep going. Okay, very good. All right, Harold, 6 through 8.
Discuss it different for everyone else. You do not obey the king's law. This would make any sense to tolerate them.
All right, D. Looks like 9 through. Oh, I'm trying to. Here. Okay, 9 through 12. Go ahead, 9 through 15. Finish out the chapter.
I will be able to pay the treasury 2,000 silver talents if you will issue a decree that they be destroyed. If you decree and gave a signet ring signed the order. The king said to me, you can keep the money and shall have my permission to do anything you want with them. In the first month, on the 13th day, every people in his own language. The order was written and sealed with the king's own signature. Runners carried the decree of extermination to all the provinces in the kingdom. All Jews were included in it. Young and old, children and women were to be killed on the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, and were to be plundered of all their possessions. This order was to be publicized in all the provinces, so that the people would be prepared to carry out the decree at the appointed time. At the king's command, the runners raced away, and the extermination order was first posted in Shushan, the capital. Then the king and said down the city of Shushan, filled with panic and confusion.
All right. Justin, you want to read?
Yeah.
All right, 1 through 6.
When Mordecai became aware of all that had happened and had taken place, he went into mourning, tore his clothing part of Mordecai into forth and put in home. No one in mourning was allowed in the king's palace, for Mordecai stood outside the palace gate. All the Jews throughout the kingdom were in mourning, fasting and weeping, All the Jews were sackcloth and ashes in public. Esther was distressed when her maids informed her that Mordecai was in sackcloth and ashes. So she went, so she sent, new clothing. Sorry, guys, that's right.
Keep going, Chuck, you're doing great.
Yeah. Which she refused. Esther was distressed when, oh, sorry. And Esther,
Yeah. Number 5.
then Esther sent Habakkuk, one was the king, had a plan to serve, to find out what was the problem. Outside, found Mordecai outside Palace Gate.
Very good. You actually co-op, Chuck. All right. Next one is 7 through 12. Ellen, you want to read?
Mordecai told Hatak about the extermination decree and about the money that Haman had paid to the king's treasury for the right to destroy the Jews. Mordecai gave Hatak a copy of the decree and asked him to show it to Esther and to tell her to plead with the king to save her people from extermination. Hatak told Esther what Mordecai had said. Esther sent back to Mordecai with the following message. Everyone knows that anyone who comes into the king's presence without a special invitation is put to death. Unless the king holds out his golden scepter, I have not even seen the king in the last month. The top relayed Esther's message to Mordecai.
All right, Beryl. 13 through 17.
Then Mordecai said, you for 1 second believe that just because you are a queen, you escape extermination decree. You did not intervene, I am president yet for the Jews who come from Swedes. You and all your relatives will perish. I believe that you were specifically brought to this house just for this evening. Then Esther sent this message to Mordecai. Gather together all the Jews in Shushan and ask for leave of 3 days and 3 nights. I and my servants will also fast. In 3 days after the visit, the king announced, and if I die, I die. Mordecai did and did exactly as Esther had told him to do.
All right, Calvin. Chapter 5. We're on page 21 in the middle. 1 through 5.
3 days later, Esther entered the throne room dressed in her robes. When the king saw Esther, he held out his golden scepter and signaled her to approach. Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Then the king said to her, Queen Esther, tell me what is bothering you. If you ask for half of my kingdom, it shall be yours. And Esther said, Your Majesty, if the king agrees, let him and Haman come to the banquet which I have prepared. And then the king said to his aides, Hurry, bring. So the king sent Esther's banquet. The king and
All right. Linda, you want to read?
Yeah.
Okay. 6 through 10.
Okay. As the king was drinking his wine, he said, Esther, tell me what is troubling you. Even if you ask for half of my kingdom, it shall be granted.
Okay. And Esther.
Then Esther answered and said, if the king is pleased with me, and if he wishes to grant my request, then let the king and Haman come to another banquet tomorrow. At this party, I will explain my problem.
Keep going.
Oh.
2 more.
Esther's banquet, a very happy man. But then he saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and
his joy turned to anger, because as usual, Mordecai did not bow down to him. But he went home and sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh.
Okay. Siva, 11 through 14.
About his riches, his many children, and how the honors which the king had bestowed upon him, and how he was now second to the king. And Queen Esther even invited the king and I came with him.
You snuck one in.
To a banquet at your palace, and tomorrow I but these honors mean nothing to me when I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the gate in the king's house. Then his wife Zeresh and his friends said to him, build a gallows 70 feet high, and in the morning ask the king to permit you to hang Mordecai from it. And then you will enjoy your banquet with the king and the queen. This advice made sense to
All righty. Chapter 6, page 23. Leah, verses 1 through 5.
That night the king could not sleep, and he decided to read the historical records of his kingdom. He read how Mordecai had discovered the assassination plot of
Bigthan,
and
Teresh,
and saved the king's life. And the king said, how have you rewarded Mordecai for saving my life? And then the king replies, nothing has been done for him. And the king continued, which of my officials are in the palace? Now Haman had just arrived at the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had just built. And the king's servant said, Haman is in the palace. And the king said, bring him in immediately.
Okay, Deborah, 6 through 10.
As Haman, the king said to him, what shall I do for a man whom I wish to honor? And Haman, I am the most important person in the kingdom. Of course, the king wants to honor me. Haman replied, for the man whom the king wishes to honor, bring a royal robe, which the king has worn, and a horse which the king has ridden, and place a royal crown on his head. And instruct one of your nobles to enrobe the person whom the king wishes to honor, and lead him on your horse through Shushan, proclaiming, this is the way the king honors those who serve him well. Then the king said to Haman, hurry, take my royal robes and my horse, and do exactly as you have suggested to Mordecai the Jew, who now sits in the palace gate.
All right. We continue with verses 11 through 14, and I think it's Philip Stern who wants to do it.
And Haman rode Mordecai in the king's robes, mounted him on the king's horse, and led him through the streets of Shushan, shouting, this is the way the king rewards those he wishes to honor. Then Mordecai returned to his post at the palace gate, and Haman sadly and shamefully crept back to his house. When Haman told his wife Zeresh that his friends what had happened, they warned him, if Mordecai is a Jew, you will never defeat him once he has gotten the upper hand. In the end, you yourself will have a great fall. While they were talking, the king's guards arrived to escort him to Esther's banquet.
All right, Elena, chapter 7, verses 1 through 4.
Once again, the king asked Esther, what is your wish, Lady Esther? Will you ask for one
it shall be yours. Then Queen Esther answered, if I have found favor in the king's eyes, and if it please the king, save my life and the life of my people. For as my people have been sold to those who wish to exterminate us, if I had been sold as slaves, I have remained silent. This decree will create many problems for the king.
All righty. Lane, verses 5 through 7.
Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, who is this evil schemer and where is he? And Queen Esther said, there sits our enemy, wicked Haman. Trembled in terror before the king and queen. The king arose in anger and went into the garden for some air, while Haman stayed behind and begged Queen Esther for his life, for he saw that his fate was sealed by the king.
All right, continue with verses 8 through 10. When the king returned, he found Haman lying across the foot of Esther's couch while she was reclining. The king roared, this evil man intends to rape my queen and my own palace right in front of my eyes. And the king spoke. His guards covered Haman. And Carbona, one of the aides, says, sire, the gallows which Haman has constructed for Mordecai stands in the courtyard. Hang Haman! On his own gallows, ordered the king. So they hung Haman on the gallows which he had constructed for Mordecai, and the king's anger was cool. Chapter 8. All right, let's start again. Darren, verses 1 through 5.
On that day, King Ahasuerus gave the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Esther the queen. Mordecai was brought before the king, for Esther had told the king what he had asked her. The king gave his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. Esther appointed Mordecai supervisor in charge of the state. Once again, Esther came before the king and begged him to stop the extermination plot against the Jews. The king raised his golden scepter, and Esther arose and stood before the king. Esther said, if it pleases the king, and if you love me, send out a decree reversing order to exterminate the Jews in all the provinces of the king.
Kimberly, 6 through 9.
How can I look on while my people are being butchered? Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, I have already given Haman estate to Esther and have hanged him because he tried to destroy your people. Now I authorize you and Mordecai to issue new orders regarding the Jews and to seal your decree with my signet ring and in my name. For any decree with the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring may not be revoked. Immediately the king's secretaries were summoned, and on the 23rd day of the month of Sivan, a decree dictated by Mordecai was sent to the Jews and the governors and princes of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 in all. This decree was written in many languages. Mordecai wrote the order in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed it with the king's signet ring, and the order was carried by speedy riders on horses, camels, and mules.
All righty. Oh, we lost one.
Oh.
Asher, how about 11 through 14?
The king allowed the Jews to band together to defend themselves and to destroy those who would attack and rob them, also their children and their women, and to take 8 days later. Mordecai's decree was to take effect on the 13th day of the month of Adar. The order was to be publicized to all people and enforced in every province, so that the Jews could avenge themselves against their enemies. Messengers rushed out almost 80 horses at the king's command, and the decree was also published in the capital of Shushan.
All right, Nathaniel, 15 through 17.
Mordecai left the king's presence dressed in royal blue and white robes, a golden crown and a cape of purple linen, while the city of Shushan celebrated joyfully. Now there was light and joy, gladness and honor for the Jews in Persia. In every city, as soon as the king's decree arrived, the Jews declared a holiday, filled with joy and gladness, and many of the people converted to Judaism, since they did not want to be harmed.
Okay. Chapter 9 on page 31. Glenn, verses 1 through 5.
And on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, the day the enemies of the Jews had chosen for their extermination, the opposite happened. And now the Jews were victorious. The Jews in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus gathered together to avenge themselves against their enemies, and no one opposed them because they were afraid. And all the government officials elevated the Jews to high office because they feared Mordecai. Mordecai had much influence and power in the palace, and his fame was growing. And the Jews defeated all their foes by the sword, destroying their enemies.
All right. Samantha, verses 6 through 12.
The Jews defeated their enemies and killed 500 enemies in Shushan, and Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmashta, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Vizatha. They killed tens of sons of Haman, the son of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, but they did not steal any of their property. That day the king learned how many people were killed in the city, in the capital of Shushan. The king then said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed 500 enemies and the 10 sons of Haman. The capital of Shushan. Just imagine what they've done in my other provinces. Now, what else do you want? Tell me and I will do it.
Okay. Let's see. Alicia, you want to do the next 13 through 17?
Then Esther said, "This is your majesty, allow the Jews in Shushan to do tomorrow what they did today. And then I will start speaking with gallows and objects as in policy." And the king commanded that it should be done, and the decree was issued in Shushan, and the 10 sons of And on the 14th day of Adar, the Jews in Shushan conquered and more of their enemies, but they did not steal any of their property. Meanwhile, the Jews in the other provinces gathered together to avenge themselves against their enemies. They killed 75,000 of those who hated them, but they did not steal any of their property. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, they rested, and on the 14th day, they celebrated their victory with feasting and rejoicing.
All righty. Harold, 18 through 22.
The Jews in Shushan assembled on the 13th and 14th days of the month, and on the 15th day they celebrated the victory and confessed speechly the word. Therefore, the Jews who lived in those celebrate the 14th day of Adar with joyous feasting and by exchanging gifts. Mordecai recorded these events. He separated all the Jews who were far into all the provinces of the king. First, you celebrate the 14th, 15th days of the month of Adar every year as a holiday. It was on those historic days that the Jews were saved from their enemies. It was a month when their sorrow was changed to joy and the pouring into happiness, making them the days of feasting and joy and exchanging gifts and giving to the poor.
All righty. D, 23 through 27.
And they adopted Mordecai's suggestion and made it a yearly custom. Because of Queen Esther brought it to the king's attention, he issued an official decree that no discrimination plan should be on his own head, and that he and his 10 sons should be hung. So today we call this holiday Purim because of the word Purim, which means throwing the dice, because of the contents of the letter and because of what happened to them. The Jews agreed to celebrate the holiday of Purim and passed it on to their children. They also decided to observe these 2 days every year.
All righty, Chuck, you want to read again?
Yes.
All righty, 28 to 32.
Should be remembered and observed by each family in every generation, in every city and province. That is, that the memory of the days of Purim never cease among their descendants. Their Queen Esther, the daughter of Ahali, and Mordecai, the Jew, wrote in the second letter confirming the establishment of the holiday Purim. And he sent letters to all the Jews in the 100 provinces and 127 provinces, with messages of goodwill and peace, to confirm that they observed the day of Purim on the correct day he, as Mordecai and Esther had agreed, as they had set for themselves and for their descendants, including the rule of the fast of Purim, and Esther's decree officially confirms the holiday of Purim in writing.
All righty. Let us all continue together with chapter 10 on page 37. And the king set a tax on his kingdom and the islands which belonged to him. His mighty deeds on account of the greatness of Mordecai and the honor bestowed upon him by the king are all recorded in the history of the kings of Media and Persia. For Mordecai the Jew was second in power to King Ahasuerus, and he was respected by the Jews and revered by great numbers of his countrymen. He constantly worked for the welfare of his people and for the goodwill of their descendants. The end. Okay? The end, but on the other hand, when we take a look at what occurred a little over a year ago on October 7th, the spirit of Amalek, the spirit of Amalek, unfortunately, is still very much alive, but the one thing that is different in this time period is with Hashem's blessings, the IDF and the IAF are able to fight for our people, fight for the land of Israel, and vanquish this generation of Haman. All right, let us continue with our services in conclusion. And we'll go to the Reader's Cottage on page 43. And Kinder, you can come on up for the opening. ובחיי כל בית ישראל והגלו בזמן קריבים הרוב. אמן. יהי שמי רב המברך, לעולם עולם ימיה יפרח. וישתבח יתמור יתמם ויתנשא, ידבר יתעלב ידלש מן קדשה, בריחו. לעילם יתברך ברכה, תקוותה נמתן, אדירם יומם ימרו. אמן. יקבל תורתך ובתורתך בישראל, hold on to Shemai V'Yimaru, Amen. Yeh Shalom Aram Yishmaya, L'chaim Aleinu V'Yad Yisrael V'Yimaru, Amen. Oseh Kavam V'Vroma, Uyase Shalom, Aleinu Yaakov Yisrael V'Imaro. Amen. Asher, come on up. Come on up. Anybody other kids want to come up? Okay. Big kids, little kids, kids with time on that. Please rise. We'll continue with the Aleinu, page 44. Aleinu Leshavei Adon HaKol Atei Gedula Yosef Reishi Kelo Asanen Kegoyei HaRatzot Kelo Samanu Kemesh Baharanama Shelo Samka Keinu Kahen V'Gor Aleinu B'Kol HaMona V'Anas V'Nukorim U'Mishacharim U'Morim Livnei Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu She'od Neshamayim Ve'yosei Haaretz U'Moshe Karov HaShamayim Imav U'Shmeina Tuzo V'Govei Meromim U'Eloheinu Eloheinu 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 Takatu B'Torato V'Yadayam V'Hashevota Elevavecha Hi Adonai Hu Elohim V'Shamayim Imav V'Yaretz Mikach Areino Akin Chaverecha Adonai Eloheinu Le'erol Yegezeres V'Setzal V'Naret Ki L'Chavi K'Ragov V'Rechel Shalom V'Navaran Aleinu Lo V'Vakeinu V'Kabel V'Matzecha V'Kim L'Chovet Ki Yamalchut Shel Chayim Yolonei Akim Lach V'Chavod Takatu B'Toratecha Adonai Yemlo L'Olam V'Ed V'Nemar Adonai L'Melech Al Kol Haaretz V'Yom Ahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shemo Those not reciting Mourner's Kaddish, please be seated. We continue with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 46. Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabah v'Yaman Yivrach Terutei Yamechmat Utei v'Chayechon v'Yimachon v'Chayei D'Chol Beit Yisrael v'Hagala v'Zman Karim Yimaru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabah v'Borach v'Halam Amen Omaya Yit Farach v'Yit Shabbat v'Yit Bahar v'Yit Roman v'Yit Naseh v'Yit Adar v'Yit Aleh v'Yit Halal Shemei Kodeshah v'Rich Hu Le'elam Yikol Birchata V'Shirata Tushbachata V'Nechemata Da'amiram Yomam Yimaru Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabam Yishmaya V'Chaim Aleinu V'Yalko Yisrael Yimaru Amen. Osei Shalom V'Ramad Hu Ya'asei Shalom Aleinu V'Yalko Yisrael Yimaru Amen. Kimberly, would you like to take the announcements? See if there's some there.
There's nothing here specific to today, but I can just say thank you for everyone for being here and joining us to celebrate Purim. I'm really excited for you to join us in the social hall here in a few days. We have Hamantashen that have been baked with love by myself and other members of the sisterhood, as well as some of my children and my husband. We all got together and did some Hamantashen, and we have a tradition that has been carried on for many years here. We have a piñata for our kids to enjoy. And so I say, let's get the party started.
Let's get the party started. All righty. Taxamayach, everybody. Let us adjourn to the social hall.
Yeah.